So clearly, I'm not in the same place. However, I just wanted to preface this video by saying this is a portion of my testimony that I would love to share with you guys. I had the opportunity to be a speaker in this conference that was happening a couple months ago, and I am super happy about it. So today is part one, and then next week we'll go into part two. But look at it, listen to it, and I'm just grateful. Hope that you enjoy. Love ya.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Andrews University Associations of Filipino Pastors, 30 Days of Testimony, Marathon of Great Filipino and American Speakers in America, Season 1. Tonight, we have a great speaker, one of the best speaker we have in our 30 days. It's amazing, okay? She is a New Jersey native whose love for music and began at very young age. Our speaker singing around the age of 3 years old and began writing songs around 10 years old. Imagine my friend, 3 years old. Okay, next. A natural strong singer, she sang in church choirs since age of 5 and began teaching choirs and leading praise and worship in her teens. She has acted in many plays and productions at church that have set the stage of her love of the arts. Our speaker began seeking ways to encourage others through the arts in 2015. She wrote and published her first book, Love Thyself, in 2018 and began the Love Thyself movement brand, which encouraged people to show God's love in all they do, to say how loved they are, and to appreciate every lesson. After many years, our speaker is launching a professional music career. She will be the next Grammy Award. She has been featured artist on an album produced by gospel music legend Bobby Funk and has been the opportunity of co-star in 2 prime Christian films for which she wrote a song in each film. She is a celebrity. Basic. Her debut single, Fear Me God, is known by well-known producer and musician Herb Middleton and is available for purchase in all digital platforms. Our speaker, mission is ministry and life work is to accomplish the goal of Mark 12, verse 28 to 34. Love God, love thyself, and love others. Our speaker, our distinguished excellency, best of the best speaker, singer, songwriter, and TV personality in New York, New Jersey, and the United States of America. Please welcome. It's a humble and it's a privilege to welcome our speaker, Evangelist Whitney Allen.
Thank you, Pastor Jeffrey, for that awesome introduction. I am absolutely honored to be here today. And just to share my testimony, I so appreciate that Pastor Jeffrey actually mentioned Mark 12, 28 to 34, because as he did say, that is the mission of the brand that I created several years ago. And also just, I feel like it's just what God has called us to do as Christians. So it is to love yourself, love your neighbor, and also first and foremost to love God. And that is the way we'll be able to love ourselves and love others. So just briefly, without any emotion, I want to give you a synopsis of what my 31 years has looked like thus far. as Pastor Jeffrey said, I was born, into a singing family. I started singing when I was 3 years old. And I was one of those children that would run around the house singing and screaming and hollering everything that I heard. So Christian music, of course, was what my grandmother would play on Sabbath mornings. And I remember my mom always playing music throughout the house when we were cleaning, and there was always music somewhere. And I remember also being that kid who got yelled at because I was screaming and hollering and singing too much. So, even when it was time to go to bed, anything like that, I always just wanted to be singing. And that was at 3. So I was just kind of like that active child who always had to be doing something. Like, I want to be helpful. I want to do my best. So and that's at 3 years old. And going forward, 5 years old, I was put into the children's choir at church. And of course, I grew up in a time when we were voluntold to do things. So it was kind of like you didn't have a choice at that time. You were a child, there's a children's choir, they come together in harmony. So I was put into the children's choir, and it was one of the best experiences really of my childhood. I remember singing at children's story time, and I just kind of did my own thing with the lyrics, and the church just went in an uproar, and they're just laughing because this 5-year-old, 7-year-old, whatever child is just singing like she just knows something. So that was like an experience for me. Actually, my first solo song was with my younger cousin, and he and I were to sing this song, and we rehearsed for a week, and every day we're singing the song, and we're in the house and we're screaming and hollering the song, and everything is great. The song was My Life Is in Your Hands by Kirk Franklin. And I remember being so nervous when I got to the front of the church. I actually started crying, and my mom's sitting in the front pew, and she's like, absolutely not. You have been yelling around my house all week long. You are singing this song. And it ended up being such a blessing. And I remember after that nervousness, after the crying, I got it together. And once we started singing, it was kind of like everything just kind of calmed down, and nobody was there in the room. For me, it was like no one was there. Everybody was there, because it was my home church, a full packed church. But it was kind of like nobody was there, and then we just did our best, and it was the greatest thing ever. And I guess from that time, as being a child, just having that idea, like, I always want to do my best. I always want to present myself in such a way that people are blessed. I want to do the best that I can and have that reputation for myself. So that has kind of carried out through my life. Around the same time, I was about between 5 and 6 years old. A brain tumor was actually found just by happenstance. I was in my house playing with my cousins one night, and we were running around, and I got hit in the head, and I was bleeding or whatever. So my parents took me to the hospital, and they did scans and everything to make sure I was okay, and they found the tumor. And I believe they said the tumor was the size of a small golf ball. And at the time, of course, I'm 6 years old. I don't know what's going on. I'm just in the hospital because I got hit in the head. I'm bleeding. So my mother and my grandmother, who are my predominant parents who raised me, they, of course, have been taking me to church since I was little, really pouring into us as children. And, we had worship together, all these different types of things. So naturally, they took me to church, had me anointed, and different things in there, praying for me. And so they get this diagnosis that it's a brain tumor. So of course, doctors are saying she has to have surgery. So of course, we're praying and we're seeking God and different things. And I'm young, so I'm just going along for the ride. My parents are handling it. Everything is going to be fine according to them. Like, I'm just 6 years old. And I remember them, telling me, of course, they went to the hospital to get the diagnosis. And then one of our family friends is actually, who's a physician, is close to and works closely with Dr. Ben Carson. He offered to do the surgery for us in order to remove the tumor. We had it all set up. My parents did. I say we because I was there, but they had it all set up, and it was such a blessing that he would offer his services for nothing. So we waited out. We did everything that we need to do preoperatively. We come to a pre-op appointment. They brought me there, and we're getting scans done prior to what would be the surgery. And we come out of the scans for pre-op, and they're saying, they tell my mom, basically, there's no tumor. There is nothing there. So it's like, of course, a shock for them, because it's like, wow, how did this happen? But my parents, my mom and my grandmother, are like not shocked at all, because they know how good God is. So from that time, when I was actually healed from a brain tumor without surgery, without radiation, without medication, anything, by God's grace only, I told my mom at 6 years old or 7 years old, I wanted to be a neurosurgeon. And of course, being the supportive mother that she was, she heard me, and she said, well, last week you wanted to be a hot dog girl, now you want to be a neurosurgeon. And I said, I want to do both. And she's like, okay, cool, no problem, I got you. Whatever whatever you want to do. So from that time, I literally was so consistent in terms of what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in the medical field. I want to help people, because Dr. Ben Carson was so helpful. He was going to help us, and he was going to offer himself. And I just thought that was the greatest thing. Of course, as a kid, that's amazing. So I watched his documentary, Gifted Hands, the movie. I just researched him like meticulously, because he had just such a selfless heart, and I was super, super grateful for that. So I was very consistent. I'm like, Mom, going in the medical field. Of course, years dwindle on, about 10 years old, and I'm still, like, I want to help people. I want to, and as life would have it, we got some unfortunate news when I was 10 years old that my mother had 6 months to live. My mom, from my experience, hadn't had very many health issues. So it was very sudden for us. And actually, as I said, I was living with, of course, my mother and my grandmother, and they're like, okay, 6 months. So it's like, whoa, I'm 10 years old. I have an ill mother. And in the same exact year, I had triplet siblings that were born. So I'm 10. My siblings are newborn. My mother is ill. My grandmother is getting older. This is a lot. So God just had a plan. And at the time, I did not know what that was. But it just turned out that my mom ended up needing a lot of physical help. She did, thank God, she did not leave us in 6 months, thankfully. She actually began to get better, and there was a lot of things that we did, natural things and all these different types of things. But as a 10-year-old, I was her full-time caregiver on top of going to school and helping with the kids. And of course, for people outside, that's kind of like, whoa. But in the situation, I didn't really realize how much it was, because it was just me and my natural thought that I want to do my best. I want to help out. I just want to be here for my family. So I'm doing everything I can as a 10-year-old. I'm still going to school. And it was just God that really orchestrated everything, because regardless of my mother's health concerns, my, siblings were growing up. Of course, they even had health concerns when they were born. And my grandmother's aging, and she was getting a little sick and different things like that. But God allowed me to be able to help my family at the same time that I was in school. I actually ended up graduating from 8th grade as a salutatorian, top of the class. I graduated from high school with honors. I graduated from college, associate's degree with honors, graduated with my bachelor's degree with honors, all while still being the primary caregiver in my family, and just kind of being the hands and feet of my household. And I don't say that to glorify myself at all. It was literally, there was no way I could have done that without God. I graduated with my master's degree with honors, and all these different things my mom got to see. She got to see every accomplishment. And it was only by the grace of God that from that diagnosis when I was 10 years old, where they gave her 6 months to live, and they gave her, and actually God allowed her 17 more years before she left us. And that in and of itself is a part of the testimony, but it was just the grace of God and his consistency and his faithfulness that he allowed her to actually have that life and experience the things that allowed us to grow up. 3 years ago, 2018, my mother passed, and it was for us very sudden. She had been sick my entire life, from 10 years old, and the triplets entire life. They're triplet siblings. But she had been in and out the hospital a lot, but generally she would come home. So she went in the hospital this last time, and we didn't, think it was going to be the last time, but it just was a different type of feel for this hospital visit. So I'm praying and I'm like, God, you've done it before. Like, get us through this. Like, we really need you. I'm gonna need you to heal her. This is my mama. And I'm praying. And I'm like, okay, are you hearing me? Because she's getting worse. Like, what is happening? And I just remember, I don't remember who it was, but I remember somebody telling me, God hears you. He's answering your prayers, but he's also answering hers. So I'm like, yeah, but I don't want him to answer hers right now. Like, I want him to hear me and make her better so that she's still here. But I knew just from, it's a really indescribable situation, but I knew from watching her in those last moments that she was tired. And I knew that she had prepared us in her own way, and that God prepared us for it, but I was still so unprepared. And it's kind of something that you really can't describe. I don't wish it on anyone, but you can't describe that moment when you are completely out of control. You have no way of fixing the situation. Your faith is there, but you don't know. You really don't know. You're questioning your own faith. There's so many things that are going on, and it's kind of like, God, are you hearing me? Like, where are you? So after she was gone, I had a period of, I want to say about 6 months, where I literally lost my mind. And I know people say that in kind of in passing, but for me, it was physical. Like, certain things weren't the same for me. I didn't think the same. I really wasn't. I was there and I knew where I was in certain situations. I was at work. I was making sure, because again, I have triplet siblings that I have to make sure are good. And of course, we lost our grandmother when I was 15 years old, and so basically it was just my mother, myself, and my siblings in our home for years. So now that she was gone, it's kind of like, okay, now it's just us four. I have to be the one to make sure everything is good. I've made her promises, and I have to do my best. I have to make sure that these things still go on. As a 27-year-old young woman with one income and 3 teenage kids to look out for. So I have the support of, my church family and godparents and just different people around me. But it's like, I have all these people, but I still feel so alone. I am afraid. I am nervous. I am anxious. I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I have no idea how to go forward. And it was kind of in a fog. I just remember always crying out to God, like, you got to help me. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. So it came to a point where I'm like, I am tired of being afraid. I'm tired. Like, how do I, like, help me? You're not hearing me. Help me. And it was like, I could physically feel God shifting the situation. I physically saw how I went from extremely afraid to be alone to being able to be by myself sometimes, extremely afraid of quiet to being okay with that. extremely afraid that I would mess up something that I said that I would do, to understanding that God was right there with me through it. He has been consistent. He has been faithful. He's never left. He's never dropped a promise. His word has never returned to me empty ever, and it was in those times that I was able to really truly lean on God and see, okay, you didn't leave me. You literally walked me to it. You're holding me through it. And the reason I don't know how I got through it is because I wasn't walking. You were carrying me. And it was kind of like a thought process, but it was also something I could physically see it. I wish I could touch it and show it to you guys, but it was just something that I could physically feel in my spirit, that God was shifting something and he had prepared us. And it was still the hardest time of my life. But I could just see the faithfulness of God and his consistency. So in all of that, in those lessons and things like that, we had, the practical things of it, because that's the spiritual side, but the practical side of it was we had a home that I had to maintain on one income now. So we had to move. And I'm like, okay, God, that's fine. I trust you and stuff. However, we have rent to pay and I can't pay it. So what do I do? So I'm praying and I'm like, all right, y'all, we have to move. This is 28-year-old at this point. My birthday had passed. The triplets are 18 now, 28 years old. And I said, we have to move. I didn't know where we were moving to. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it. I didn't know how I was going to move everything. I didn't know anything like that. I knew that I had to move. My car was breaking down, and yeah, I had to figure it out immediately. Okay. So I have a broken down van that is on its last leg. I can't keep driving it. I have a house that I have to get for these kids and myself, and I have to do it very fast. So I'm like, all right, y'all, we're packing up the house. I literally had a 2-week period to think about the whole packing thing. So we packed up everything. We get boxes from work. We had our family over. There were so many people there. Don't even remember who all was there, but we packed up our house and they're like, where are you guys moving to? I have no idea, literally. Up until the week of, I had no idea. I'm asking around, asking people, where can I go to look for an apartment? What, who kind of approves easily or anything like that? Nothing. So it came to our current apartment place, and it was a 3-day period, 3 days. I applied on the first day. That same day I got a call back. They say, generally it takes a couple of weeks. And I'm like, well, ma'am, I don't have a couple of weeks. So, I need like an answer ASAP. Thank you so much. Hung up the phone. I called to a company. I'm like, I need some type of money. I'm going to need a down payment. I don't know how much. How much can I get? They give me an amount of money. They approve me the same day. No problem. Went to go pick up the money. I get a call back the next morning. The lady says, you've been approved for an apartment. We never walked into the apartment. We never saw the bedrooms. We didn't see the inside of the apartment until we moved in. But from that first day when I applied, I got approved for money that day. The next day we get approved for the apartment. That third day we get keys in our hand. I have the check. The check that I got was the exact amount of money that I needed to move into my apartment that we had never seen. We had never seen, but it was the exact amount of money that I needed to move into the apartment. I take the check from the company. I give the check to the apartment place. We move in, we get one box truck. We take all our stuff. It literally fit in one box truck, one trip from our old place to our new place. Everything's in there. One trip, we come in, we move in. That was moving day. 3 days. Now, generally, I don't know if you guys know, but in New Jersey, it is extremely hard to get approved for an apartment, especially within one day.
As I always say, remember to love God because He is the source of real love. Remember to love yourself and appreciate all God created you to be. And while you're getting all that love and learning those lessons, remember to love on other people because that is the way that your world will continue to go around. I love you so very much. Bye. See you next week.